the years of working on old Mercedes, I received numerous emails on how to remove the fuel tank screen from your fuel tank on these older diesels. Yes, that's right. If you're not aware of it already, there is a fuel tank screen in the tank, and if it becomes plugged, it can create problems. Take a look at this shot here where we recently removed a fuel tank screen from a car that was just quitting going down the road. Look at the difference. And they can become plugged up, and when they do, you will experience power loss, and in some cases the engine will just quit. The problem is that these screens are not easy to remove. You can see here that the screen screws into the bottom of the tank, and then the hose is attached to the bottom threads in this screen. A lot of times, just by removing the hose, you can get the screen to come out at the same time. But sometimes you'll pull this hose out, and there's a screen stuck in the bottom of the tank. And without the proper tool, it's very difficult to get out. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided, okay, it's time to make a tool that makes it easy for our customers to remove this right here. Let me show you this in detail. You can see from the size of the screen that it takes a rather large socket, and I'm talking a big socket. The problem with most of these big sockets is they're 3/4 inch drive, and that requires that you have to go out and buy a 3/4 inch ratchet or extension, and then there's a limited amount of space to work above the axles to get the screen out. So what I've done is I've come in and welded a 17mm bolt to the top of this socket, which will allow you to use a smaller wrench to get up underneath that rear axle and to break the screen loose. You can use a normal 17mm box end and work the socket like this, or as I prefer, I like the ratcheting box. You can get that up in there, especially the flex head. You can flex the head, and then you can tighten and loosen the fuel tank screen. Without this socket, it becomes very difficult to remove the screen. Due to the nature of diesel fuel, these screens located in the older diesel cars are much more prone to plugging up than those in the gasoline cars. If you have an older diesel and you don't know anything about the maintenance history of the car, I would highly recommend that you replace this screen. At least take it out and inspect it before it leaves you stranded somewhere. If you plan to do this, you'll need to get your tank low on fuel, and you'll need to drain the tank. And I'd highly recommend that you just have a brand new screen as well as a brand new hose on hand, because they might need to be replaced. And you go to all that trouble to drain the tank, it's good to have those new parts. You'll also need the socket, or you'll find yourself really frustrated trying to remove this screen from the fuel tank. Keep in mind that you'll only need the big socket on these type of screens, which were mounted in the 107, 116, 123, 126, 201, 124, and other chassis that have the fuel tank mounted behind the rear seat. On the other earlier chassis, the fuel tank screen is different. Note there's no outlet for the hose here, and it has a different type of hex fitting needed to remove those type of screens. These screens are found in the older 108, 109, 114, and 115 chassis, as well as station wagons. So if you have one of these models and want to get the screen out, I also created a unique little special hex tool that will allow you to get into the screen like this and get quite a bit of torque on it. As you see here, we're putting this tool into a 300 TD station wagon, which allows us to remove the screen and drain the fuel out of the tank. In a future video, I'm going to go ahead and cover the details of draining the fuel tank and removing this screen in a step-by-step video, so stay tuned.